Hello.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Hannah Osei, the head of programs at Amnesty International Ghana, and I warmly welcome you all to today's event, which is the launch of a research report on witchcraft accusations in Ghana. The research report is titled, Branded for Life: How Witchcraft Accusations Lead to Human Rights Violations of Hundreds of Women in Northern Ghana. So the day's event is in two folds. For this morning, we're going to have a presser, and then that would be followed up by a stakeholder engagement. So for our press conference this morning, we have with us from the West African Regional Office of Amnesty International, a researcher named Michelle Eken. Michelle, kindly give us a wave. Thank you. And then we have our own country director, Genevieve Patterson. A wave? Yes, thank you. And then our board chair, Francis Nyantechi. You are all warmly welcome. And so we'll start with the presser, and just as I have mentioned, we'll continue with a stakeholder engagement. Thank you. Please, let's clap for them.
Good morning, everyone. Amnesty International conducted 2 research trips to look into the issue of witchcraft accusations from 26th of November to 9th of December 2023, and from the 21st of April to the 8th of May 2024. We interviewed 93 people who were accused of witchcraft, including 82 women, across 4 camps in northern and northeast regions where those accusations are prevalent. We also met with various Ghanaian and international organizations working on the issue, as well as several authorities, including local governments. In this report, we first discussed the context behind witchcraft accusations, and then explore the different human rights violations incurred because of it. An accusation usually starts within the family, then spread into the community. Tragic events, such as a death in the family or an illness, often trigger an accusation, but a dream can also suffice to completely uproot those who are accused. Jealousy and tensions over the lack of economic resources contribute to an environment where cultural beliefs can be used to scapegoat the most vulnerable people in the community. Although men can also be accused, most people accused are older women or women who are unmarried, successful, or otherwise not conforming to stereotypical gender roles. Other factors can increase their chances of being accused, including having limited formal education or having health conditions. Amnesty International found that the state does not provide enough protective measures for women accused of witchcraft or at risk of being accused, thereby violating their right to life and security. Women are afraid of reporting witchcraft-related abuse to the police, and incidents are not systematically investigated. Under international law, religious beliefs are protected, and as such, the belief in witchcraft shall not be condemned. However, harmful practice linked to a belief are not protected and should be criminalized to serve as a deterrent and prevent future incidents. Unfortunately, there is currently no law criminalizing witchcraft accusation and related abuse in Ghana. In addition, despite sporadic efforts by the government, there is a lack of coordination for a systematic and long-term sensibilization campaign in the impacted regions to combat cultural practice discriminatory toward women and older people, which would be essential to progressively reduce incidents of witchcraft accusations. Faced by rejection by the community, women have few options. There are no government shelters in those regions where the accusations happened. It follows them wherever they go, with disastrous outcomes. Indeed, the case of Aquadente, who was lynched in July 2020 in the Savannah region, is a stark reminder of the dire consequences of witchcraft accusations. As a result, women who are accused end up in camps overseen by traditional priests, where the living conditions are difficult. In the 4 camps, Patinga, Nani, Kuko, and Gambaga, access to food, safe housing, and clean water is limited. Although women who are strong enough work in local farms in exchange for food, those who are older or sick are heavily dependent on the helps of others, including children who are sent to the camp to help their grandmothers with daily tasks, a hindrance to their continuing education. Some women are not registered into the government cash program, the Livelihood Empowerment Against Poverty program, despite qualifying for it. And those who are complain that the payments are often delayed and insufficient for their needs. The floor of the huts in the camps are often in poor conditions, and the roof do not effectively prevent rain from entering the huts. In all the camps, access to clean water is a challenge, as running drinking water isn't available despite a national policy providing for it. While in some camps, NGO donated water tanks and boreholes, water is not always accessible, especially during dry season. As a result, women have to walk for hours in mountainous areas to get water from the nearby river multiple times a day. Finally, due to the age and living conditions in the camps, the women are particularly at risk of getting sick, and the state holds the primary responsibility for ensuring their rights to health is fulfilled, although civil society organizations can play a supportive role. However, access to health services is difficult in the camps. Most women have national health insurance, but local clinics do not always have the medication they need. Moreover, for those who have serious and chronic illnesses, the coverage under health insurance is insufficient, forcing them to pay out of pocket or heavily rely on the financial help of others. Thank you. I'll now let Geneviève talk about the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. So again, Michelle is a senior researcher from the Amnesty International West Africa Regional Office. Good morning, everyone. My name is Genevieve Partington, and I'm the country director for Amnesty International Ghana. So we have just heard some troubling findings on the conditions of the alleged witches' camps in Ghana. Findings that remind us of the urgent and heartbreaking reality that many elderly women continue to face. These so-called witch camps are not places of refuge. They are symbols of fear, exclusion, and deep-seated injustice. The findings are a stark reminder of the harsh realities that many elderly women continue to endure, banished, mistreated, and living in fear simply because of harmful accusations of witchcraft. These are not isolated cases. They reflect a systemic failure to protect some of our most vulnerable citizens. It is a failure rooted in deeply entrenched gender biases, harmful traditional beliefs, and the absence of strong legal protections to prevent such abuses. We cannot allow this injustice to continue, ladies and gentlemen. The government has a duty, both moral and constitutional, to act decisively. That is why today we make clear and urgent call for legislative action to protect elderly women from these baseless accusations and the violence that often follows. You will see here today that we have the stories of the women. If you take a look around the room, you see portraits of women, real women who are accused, who are living currently in these camps. So on this, we would like to make the following calls to the government. We call on the Speaker of Parliament to prioritize the passing of the Witchcraft Accusations Bill. The bill was reintroduced as a private member's bill in February this year, led by Honorable Francis Xavier Sosu, the MP for Medina. This will send a clear message that these human rights violations will not be tolerated. We also call on the government of Ghana to look into a gradual closure and reintegration of women from the alleged witch camps back into their communities or elsewhere they feel safe. These camps are not a permanent refuge. They are a symbol of societal neglect. Reintegration must be accompanied by support systems, including housing, healthcare, and economic empowerment programs. There's already the LEAP, which is working in the camps, but it is not enough. Before reintegration must come reconciliation. There must be a comprehensive roadmap by the government, led by the Ministry of Gender, Children, and Social Protection, to educate community members and the youth, especially on the dangers of accusing vulnerable women and using other means other than violence to settle disputes. We call on CSOs to increase public education and awareness campaigns to reduce and eventually end witchcraft accusations. This will require dismantling harmful beliefs that fuel witchcraft accusations. The government must also invest in nationwide campaigns to challenge myths, educate communities, and promote the rights of elderly women. We urge, again, civil society organizations, traditional leaders, and the media to join us in this fight. Together, we must amplify the voices of these women, advocate for policy changes, and ensure that justice is not delayed or denied. stronger enforcement of existing human rights protections. The laws we have must work for everyone, including these women. Police, social workers, and judicial officers must be equipped and trained to handle these cases with urgency and sensitivity. We urge the government to move beyond rhetoric and take meaningful steps to end this injustice. We call on parliamentarians, policymakers, civil society, and all stakeholders. We must work together to push for legal and systemic reforms. So everyone here, this is not just a government issue, it is a societal issue. We all have a role to play in challenging harmful norms, supporting survivors, and ensuring justice is served. Let us stand together to demand laws that protect, policies that empower, and a society that upholds the dignity of all its members, regardless of age and gender. Thank you. Now, I would like to introduce the board chair for Amnesty International Ghana. He will be giving the tree version of my statement so that at least the message goes out to everyone or majority of people. So please, Mr. Nyantechi, if you can come. Thank you.
Director Medawasi said the okay no me de beba ye kasem o mapoto ache na researcher Amnesty International ye wo hwa wo hunu se e how pa na e ha adwen se oman te se Ghana na e wo se ye bom ma ho ban na omu ediye no mani ji wo krom ha no rather no ye maame mo mabɔ mrewa ya omuni obi obeka bia ma wo mo ye hu se emredodo na no ye fre ye accuse omu se omo ye abayifo na ya pan won afrifie na omo adwane akɔhye which comes said the omo kopɛ omo ho ahobanbɔ eso hwe which comes on adwuma ekoso a enya ahobanbɔ ankasa na omunya wo ho na emom ehu ene ekuro a yeyi wo mafiri mu ntina omo de ahopepre akɔhye ho yehwe ne ma yekoso wo nyina yehu se enye kra na oman te se Ghana de enka wo mu a emma emrewa enkwara wo mu a sebe omu omre a omu ntimi enka ma wo mu ho no nkoso oman na nkasa na dima wo mu eso enye saa na yehu no emma e continue to suffer e wo yesa kro mu a eni kwa se yesoso nti ye de adesre eto Speaker of Parliament yenim se ose a oye ebe mfie mienu ne ni hia o ka so behwe se samra no ye be pass ampa ekoso eso fofie antoata president ansan yenua sosu aya ade biem wasan de mra no akọ parliament ese ye nhwe na ye pass ye de adesre to parliament anim se omo manenya ade ehia wo mu pa se enimonimu ya omo be pass samra we sei na emma enyomo fa ahudi ewo krom ha especially ye nananom mrewa ya omuwo no den Ghana ye san ade ato abanyanim se what comes no nya ade a wo se ye hwema ne tena ho afebo enti onfa kwan a kakra ye beyi ma ne nyina afri what comes so ne do makọ omu krom ama makọ tena omu fie eno mabusu akọ bom no mo de anigye atena se akopim se ombedi omu nkwan ewo asasi so ewie nemom before so omudo omu beko no ye wa asede se ye be cheche oman no eni nkro na omu firi mu na mo mahu se ade na ekoso no enya de pa na oso omu gyan ekoso biem o se aban no epe omu ba bi omu betena ye ka efie a omu betena tenam omu ayarehwem ene ekon befa so ombetimi ama omu nsa akọ oma no ehu hia pa yede etu Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection say ombe educate Ghana man manyina nati true yenuanom a omo extreme, especially baby what comes no ewo no na omo hu se sade we a ekoso yi enya adepa, especially emrantewa ene maba ewo krom. Wohwe mo mpre dodo na ye hu se ye beka so bi ye bayfo a dodo na ye emrante no na ye de sasobo no eto emrewafo no so. Ye mami akura dentede for instance ye kokrom ho me ami kobi. Wohwe ma ya baba wasi so kama na se wo hu se mami ne bayfo. Ye nyina so be nyina ye mrewa nti eni kwase saade no ye so ekoso biem ye nyina no ma ye no mu ye enipa fa ahode hu adwuma ye de adesre to wo mu nyina anim se ye nkoso na ye ncheche oman no eni nkronkro no nyina ma omonte ase se sa ade we nya ade a wo se ye so na wo se nipa bia na nimonyam ya ode te ase na wo se ode tena se ekopim se ono ankasa ebewuo. Etoso biem yen hemfo ye krom panyimfo yen hemamo ewo asede ese omo beboa yen na sa ayakayaka de a ekoso yi ebeyi efri yen kromu se ebisi a ombe reporto ama police fo na a police fo ne omo mbeye saade no edi no mra kwan so se de ebeye a ye maame mo ene enua mo nyina ebenyu omo fa ahode etwa to no ye de ade se eto a police for any omo hwe Ghana mra so se ebe ye adwuma se omo nkoso se saade we koso a ombe chi omo ye sa ne ma no no mo do mafa emra kwan so na ye maame mu any omo ye de saade we eto omo so omo anya omo fa ahodie ekoso bi ye frɛ ye parliamentarians omo hyemra ene emra nimfo any all the stakeholders ye nyina ye ka ho bi ye ne ye wo media ma ye sori a sabe ye ne ye kasa ekọ akiri pa se ye nyina ye mfa ne se eye adwuma a wo se ye nyina ye na nya aban ko ade a ye nyina ya sede se abayisem ya ye de to ye maame so ye nyina ye ka bom a ye betimi eye firi ho ye se obakofo ehu aduru a egu ba se ye nyina ye ka bom se ye de ye ya sede se ebe ye ho campaign se ewo se etwa so masade ko a ebe ye nti media yesre mo prioritize sade we na enkoso na ekoso a yenim se ebeboa yedamase se enemu abeka ye ho amaye pa saa adwumade ho enim yedamase biem.
Thank you very much, Michelle, Genevieve, and Francis, for the insightful presentations on the report, Branded for Life. So we'll have a Q&A session. Thank you very much, Michelle, Genevieve, and Francis, for the insightful presentation on the report, Branded for Life, which gives a revelation of happenings in the witch camps in Ghana. We would move on to have a Q&A session from the press. So journalists present who have questions, kindly feel free to ask your questions, and then our members here would respond to them. Any questions? Questions from the press? Okay, not yet. Okay, so while we wait for the questions, just a minute, we'll take an official lunch from our director and the team, an official lunch.
Okay, so we're just going to officially launch the report. Martha, do you want to join us? Regional team, Fatima. Okay. Belinda, come. Oh, yes. So our partners, please, Song Taba and Action Aid, please join us. The stage feels like it's about to cave. Are we all here? Hey. Great. Are we all here? Okay. We should. I should come down? Okay. All right. Yes. Ah, okay. Yeah, they're saying we should come here to launch it. All right, so let's stand here. This is much better. Good. Awesome. Are we okay? Is it good? Okay, so yeah. Okay, so Amnesty International Ghana, I the country director, Genevieve Partington, duly launched the report, Branded for Life, How Witchcraft Accusations Lead to Human Rights Violations of Hundreds of Women in North Ghana. Report by Amnesty International. I declare the report duly launched. Thank you. So let's stand for it.
We can do it better. We can do it better.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So, sena midi kan no. Se ya waha ye free media ye wo nsembise bia ema ye mpanyinfo e wo presentation omoye efa nhwehwemu about witchcraft accusations e wo Ghana hana me pacho time a odibe bisa wa asem enie. So this is the time for questions and answers based on the findings of the report that has been presented to us here. So we had a hand up.
Okay, good morning. I wanted to find out from your presentation, looks like the police are not doing much about the situation in relation to the accusations. I want to find out if there's a reason the police are not doing anything about it. Is it because they are scared of the community members, or it has become a norm there? That's why they are not doing much about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So please, when next you take the microphone, you introduce yourself before you ask your question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. I think the first issue is that not a lot of women report the incident. A lot of them don't go to the police because they are either scared of going to the police or they find it culturally unacceptable. Some women told us we will be bad mothers if we go to the police. You have to remember that most of the people accusing them are part of their family. So it's very difficult for them to go through that step of complaining, going to the police to talk about, you know, a brother, a son, a nephew who accuse them of witchcraft. So I think this is why it's important to go through sensibilization in those communities, to also empower those women to go to the police and file complaints. The other issue is that a lot of time the police stations are far from the community, so by the time they hear about it, or even if they want to complain, it's an issue. It might be also an issue of resources for the police in terms of human resource and financial resource to go to those communities every time there's an incident. And it happens quite often that they don't necessarily hear about it until it's too late. And that will require putting more budget and effort into empowering those women, sensitizing those women, and putting more resources, more police stations closer to where the incidents happen. Thank you.
Okay, the all kind of say, and predator no. Almost an hour to a mountain report and call police station. A police betting na ache. And baby so no omuni police station wo police station is no ewa every baby asa enema no esi it before say police betting na too late ebu okomo mo yes ade no hwema wo hu na ye too late enema sa enema ne ba it no recommendation is say enkebe say aban no be set police stations ewo sa enkronkro no dodo na say the assembly sia eben wo mutu o betimi I responded to it.
Thank you very much. Any more questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay, my name is Erica with TV3. So my first question, I'm sorry I didn't come early, so I don't know if this has already been mentioned. My first question is with respect to the passage of a bill. Aside that, what else will Amnesty International do to help women in such conditions?
Okay, thank you very much. So currently, there is a coalition against witchcraft accusations where there are partner CSOs, individuals, and even MPs, Mental Health Authority, are part of this coalition. They've been pushing for the passage of the bill since it was introduced into Parliament. As CSOs, we have the mandate. We'll be collaborating with Action Aid. The first step was to produce this report, which covers basically the human rights violations within these camps. It is very important for us to do a lot on advocacy. Public education is very important for people to understand that these are harmful practices and we need to put an end to it. And it needs to begin from the grassroots. Most of the time, when these women are beaten, chased out of the villages, it's mostly by youth that, you know, pick up stones, cutlasses, those kind of things, and beat them, chase them out. It's led by the youth. So a lot of public education, it's currently being done by partners. Amnesty International also does a lot of advocacy, whether it's online or within the camps. Just educating, and within the communities surrounding the camps. There are particular communities within the north and northeast regions that really accuse these women. In some of the camps even you'll find a few men who have been accused as well. So that education, without public education, without advocacy, it will be very difficult for persons to understand that this is not right and it's a human rights abuse. I think the most interesting part of the advocacy is in our culture and the belief that, you know, there's spirituality, there's witchcraft. And I know a lot of the traditional leaders are also doing a lot in terms of speaking with the priests of communities, other community members, to let them know that it is not by branding and accusing someone of witchcraft that your problems can be solved or go away. So this is something that we have to continue educating the public about, and that they should not resort to violence. Another issue is sometimes a lot of these older women are accused because they have conditions like dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and a lot of people are not aware of these conditions where you forget where you are, you walk around and things like that. So I know that the Mental Health Authority is also doing that education around it so that people are more aware of you know, conditions that elderly people can get, and it is not, it should not be there's no correlation to witchcraft on that. Thank you. A follow-up. Oh, okay.
So with respect to this particular question I asked, when this bill has been passed and is now a law, can you please help suggest a way governments can punish perpetrators when this has been passed and it's a law?
Okay, thank you so much. So the law will actually prescribe the kind of sanctions that should come with witchcraft accusation. So it is not for us, whatever input we have as an organization, we have made it to the state. We are working with Parliament. And interestingly, like we do all the time, we have plans of engaging the Speaker of Parliament and the parliamentarians to discuss some of these issues. So the law itself will prescribe exactly the kind of punishment that should come. But our advocacy is that the law should be punitive enough so that its deterrent factor will actually caution people or warn them out of this practice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good morning. My name is Claudia Lacave. I work for DW, and I have two questions. Maybe the first one will be, what is the priority? Is it the passing of the law or the awareness campaign? And the second question will be more on the roots. Is there economical push for people to actually accuse these elderly members of the communities? Do they have like financial or economical interest in doing so?
Thank you. We're pushing for the law because it's the most, it's the fastest road to start changing things, but it's important to do both at the same time. Just passing the law would not change people's action, so the law should work in tandem with sensibilization, because even with the law, the people will continue attacking women, and the camps will keep receiving people, so we won't be able to stop the issue. Sensibilization is very important. And the law can also help with sensibilizations. We talk to partners, and having the law will also help when they do sensibilization to explain to people that there will be consequences to their action. To respond to the resources issue, yes, it is definitely a factor. There is obviously the belief that it's real, but sometimes people use that belief to get rid of people because, you know, they want their land, or they're very successful in the community and they're jealous and they want to take over this. So it's definitely an issue, a persistent issue, and that's why we also, in our recommendation, ask for more economic opportunities in those regions so that there are less tension over economic resources. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any more questions? Okay, great. I'm glad we are going to hear a male voice.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Owen Atendana. I work for 38 Ghana. My issue or my concern, yes, I do know that this is a research that has been conducted. But then the question I want to ask is witchcraft real? And then if so, why is it that it is only associated with the elderly, the very old? Because I do believe that once we agree that this exists or is real, it is not only the old or the aged that are engaged in this. And so why is it just marginalized to this set of individuals? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. We at Amnesty International cannot validate spirituality. And so for us to say it is real or not, it's not our business. We think that witchcraft accusation is a criminal thing that should not be entertained. The issue of why only women and the elderly, that is what we said. The society has not been fair to women. and especially the aged in our communities. Let me say that when Ekweadente died, when she was lynched, I went to Kafaba myself. Let me appreciate TV3 for the work they did at the time. You realize that women, it's an intentional thing by society to, what do I put it? To put our women in such an ugly situation. To the extent that even when they get to those ages, at times they don't allow them to live in the courtyard. They live outside the house. And it was so traumatic. And so for us, we think that it should not be entertained. It is not a preserve of any human being a traditional priest, being a pastor, whoever you are, to accuse anybody of witchcraft. And so that is the position. We cannot validate whether it is real or not. And we are not even interested in knowing that. We believe that every human being should live in dignity until the day he or she is called to the Maker. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just to add to that, so you also asked why that particular group. So it's because of their vulnerability. Most of the older women, when we interviewed them, most of them have a very, not so much education. So you would see that a lot of them dropped out of school or had to stop school at a very early age. In fact, some did not even attend school. And another category is widows. So most women who have lost their husbands in the community. In our culture, it's seen that your spouse is like a protection around you in the community based on our culture. So once that protection is removed, you are easily attacked by your community, especially if you don't have an elder son to take over house matters or make decisions for your household. So you will see that there's a trend. Many of the women are those who are not, don't have a certain level of education, and women who are widowed. You would also see a trend, of course, as a lot of polygamous families where you have, it could be in either of the wives, first, second, third, that is accused. There's no trend on which number of wife, but most of the time it could be either wife that is accused of witchcraft, whether it's due to jealousy, due to if there's a farm at stake, if there's land at stake. These are some of the economical issues that community members or family members fight over, even down to childbirth. If someone is not able to give birth, then it's likely that one of the wives has cursed this person. So these are some of the things that you will see come out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director. Can we take the last question? The last question, if any. Okay, seems there's no question. Thank you very much. We'll move on to have the interviews, individual interviews. Yeah. Okay. So then media panelists are available for you for side interviews. At this point, we want to bring the first session, which is the press conference, to an end, and then we'll prepare for the second session, which is starting in less than an hour from now. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Please, there's coffee break. There's coffee going on at the right exit of the conference room. The right exit. There's coffee break going on. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Can we settle down to start this mid-morning session? People are still not settling down. Please, can we settle down? Hello. Good morning once again, ladies and gentlemen. Can we settle down, please? Great. It has been an interesting morning, and it's going to continue to be more interesting as we go along. So once again, on behalf of Amnesty International, I want to welcome you all to this mid-morning's session with stakeholders. My name is Bernice Sam. I'll be your moderator for today. So once again, welcome. For this mid-morning session, we're going to have a very interesting conversation, continuing from what happened in the morning, with respect to the research report that Amnesty International has conducted about a topic which is of interest to all of us, that is relating to witchcraft accusations. So as you can see from the agenda, we'll have snacks. It's still ongoing. So if you haven't had a bite, please walk to my left, to the door to my left, and get something to eat. Then we'll go on to have some remarks by the country director, AI, Ghana. So following the remarks by the country director, we'll go on to have some welcome remarks from key representatives from government institutions which are represented here. And then we'll watch a video, a short video, and get into the crux of today, which is the panel conversation on the findings from this interesting research titled Branded for Life, How Witchcraft Accusations Lead to Human Rights Violations of Hundreds of Women in Ghana. We'll have an open forum to hear your thoughts about how we can move forward with the advocacy and the remaining important things that must be done. Then we'll summarize and hopefully close by lunch time. So without much ado, I'd like to call on Genevieve Partington to give her remarks. Genevieve. Oh, please, let's hear it for her. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I hope we're all well. Yes, so this morning, just this morning, we officially launched the report, Branded for Life. And it basically speaks about the human rights violations that are happening in the camps which have women who have been accused of witchcraft. Do grab a copy of the report. It's also available online. Share as much as possible, because it's very important for people to understand what is going on in these camps. Of course, the women run there because it's seen as a form of shelter. They have nowhere else to go. But if they had a choice, they may live somewhere else, of course. But they've been forced to go to these camps. The government needs to take this situation serious. One, human rights abuse is human rights abuse on all. It doesn't matter the number. Someone asked me earlier, is this really happening in Ghana? Yes, it is. We had a research team from Amnesty International, West Africa Regional Office, visit 4 of the camps in north and northeast of Ghana, the regions. And in fact, I think the first day I was at the camp. I had to take a breather. I couldn't, some of the stories were really atrocious and very, very difficult to hear. The stories are heartbreaking. You hear of women being beaten, being accused, being called names, and imagine someone chasing you out of your household or even burning your house down. These are the realities of women who are accused of witchcraft. And unfortunately, this thing, we call it branded for life because it is from generation to generation. Most of the time, when your grandmother is accused, eventually your mother will be accused, eventually you will also be accused as a child. So this is a huge issue that government needs to pay attention to. So today, as Madam Bennett said, we'll be launching into a panel discussion, stakeholder engagement. It's very important that we really speak to the issues. We have a very interesting panel of persons who deal directly with the women who have been accused, but also the research team from Amnesty. So I'm really happy to, listen to the discussions, and I'm hoping that everyone learns something from here, but also do more advocacy. Use your platforms, your social media platforms. I see a lot of our youth, Amnesty youth are here. Give me a wave. Hey, great. So please, I'll be checking your posts. Ensure you post, ensure you educate the public about witchcraft accusations and how it is a human rights abuse, and Parliament should ensure the bill is passed fast, and then also the President signs it into law. Thank you, everyone, and I'm wishing you wonderful discussions.
Thank you very much, Genevieve. Let's give it up for her. I'd want to acknowledge some key persons amongst us. The first on my list is Dr. Miriam Idrisu, who is an advisor for social policy from the Office of the Vice President. Ma'am, you are most welcome. We also have ACP Owusu Chireme, who is representing DCOP Lydia Donko, who is the Director General, Criminal Investigations Department of the Ghana Police Service. Madam, you are welcome. We have Ms. Faustina Boachi from the African Women Leaders Network, AWL. Great. And then we have Mr. Leonard Goba, who's a Social Development Advisor, British High Commission. Leonard? Great. You are all welcome and special. So we'll go on to have a few remarks from Dr. Idrisu. Doc, you're welcome. Let's give it up for her. Oh, this morning, what is happening? Please, let's feel the warmth.
Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be part of this conversation today. The Office of the Vice is aware and has been part of this conversation. This is one of the areas that is very key and passionate to her. Maybe you would say that they are the most vulnerable women in our society today. Having to find yourself in a witch's camp is not an easy thing, and this is an area that is very key, and the Vice is very passionate about it and would have loved to be part of this. Unfortunately, she is on vacation, resting. Research is actually incomplete until it is communicated effectively, and I can see some people here carefully selected, and you are bringing your diverse experiences on board this conversation, and hopefully we should be able to have a framework that should bring this. I honestly do not know what phrase to even use to qualify it, but for decades these are people who have been put in camps and given all kinds of names, stigmatized, and they can't live a normal life like you and I. So hopefully we should be able to come up with some strategies that should bring this conversation to some sort of closure, in addition to government promoting and ensuring that this particular law is passed, and probably would help in bringing a closure to this conversation. So on this note, I welcome everybody on board. Make sure you contribute effectively, and at the end of the day, we should all be proud that we were part of putting up a strategy that would finally bring this whole conversation to a closure. On this note, we are all welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Idrisu. And as she rightfully said, this is a very interesting topic for all of us, men and women alike, old and young alike. Wherever you work in the public sector or the private sector, this is a topic that we simply cannot wish away. So I want to also thank Amnesty International for this study and for bringing us all here today to learn more about the study and to ginger us to go back and not only use our social media networks, but for those of us who are BBC, you know BBC? BBC is born before computer, but I make it BBSN, born before social networks. So we will do the talking with the powers that matter, whilst the young ones will do more of the propagation to get more people to know about this topic and to support the advocacy work. So we'll spend some time to watch a video of the situation in the northern part of our country to set the context for the panelists to come together to delve deeper into what their experiences are and what the findings of the study are. So Edmond, if we are ready to watch the video. That we heard from the video, but the photos tell a compelling story. A story, and the inscriptions at the bottom tell a story that is quite sad. And like Genevieve said, when you have been there, it lingers on with you. It lives with you. And you can't but help to join thousands of people to say, we need to put an end to it. There's something also very striking about the video and the stands we see. And these are all old women. Some of us are not up to that age, but believe you me, we will get there. And who knows what we may be called when we get there. But I do have a panel to discuss the issues relating to a number of areas: our beliefs as Ghanaians, our response as Ghanaians, our reaction as Ghanaian state apparatus, and our actions as Ghanaians, as people, and what we can do. So to call to the podium to join me, I don't know if Honorable Francis Soso is here. Not yet. So I'd want to call on Aliyah Mumuni from Action Aid. Please join me up here. We also have Samadou Saibu. Please, you can sit. Great, please let's clap for him. Michelle Iken from AI West Africa, Regional Office. Welcome. Belinda, AI Ghana. The honorable member is here. So I want to call up Honorable Francis Xavier Sosu. Oh, okay. I wondered where I was supposed to swap to. But we'll wait for the honorable member to join. I hope we have enough microphones on the tables. Okay, I'll share with the... Welcome, it is indeed. Right, I'm supposed to introduce my panelists. When I start from my junior here, and I'm saying my junior because I'm a senior lawyer, and you know, when we meet like this, we want to show our crutchy powers. Our honorable member of parliament has a very impressive resume. But what interests me and will interest all of us is that he has been one of the few members of parliament who pushes private members' bills and has pushed quite a number and has had some successes. He's a lawyer, a human rights activist, and he's a writer, has served on several committees in parliament. He's the MP for Medina, and if you come from anywhere near Medina, he's quite a very popular member of parliament. They love him. He serves on several bar associations in and outside Ghana. And indeed, we are very pleased to have you. And he's visited the camps as well. So welcome. Next to him is Michelle Iken, who's a senior researcher at Amnesty International's West and Central Regional Office in Dakar, Senegal. Soyez bienvenue, Michelle. She's a lawyer with over 10 years' experience in human rights law, who is also very passionate about women and children's rights. She used to work previously for Open Society Foundation and the UN Human Rights Commission. She's been working at Amnesty International for the past 4 years, covering Anglophone countries in West Africa. Interesting that she's based in Canada and covers Anglophone countries. So now you are welcome. Let me use my English. So welcome, Michelle. Let's give it up for Michelle. Next to Michelle is Samadou Saibu, who is a development worker, has been a practitioner with a passion for gender equality and social inclusion issues. She's been applying gender transformative approaches as a way to challenge social norms. Great. And of course, this has been one of the areas he's worked in for many years. So Samadou, you are most welcome. Let's clap for him. Next is Aliyah. Aliyah Mamadou. Mumuni. Aliyah, you are from the, I have to now, Action Aid, the Northern Regional Program Officer. As you know, Action Aid has been very instrumental in working around gender equality. They've been in the northern part of Ghana for many, many years. They've done great work relating to sexual and gender-based violence, gender inequalities, discrimination. They have been working in this area for a long, long time. So, Aliyah, we are great and privileged to have you join us. And of course, let's give it up to her, for her. Last but not least is Belinda, who works with Amnesty International. She's been a great, great, great worker who's been pushing the advocacy agenda of Amnesty International for a long time. She will share her perspectives with us from the research and also her visit to the camps. So Belinda, great to have you join the panel. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll kick the ball rolling. We would want to begin our conversation within the broader social and cultural context. So I want to find out, and this question goes to Honorable Sosu. We want to try to define the identity of the Ghanaian. How would you describe the Ghanaian in terms of our social values, beliefs that shape our identity as Ghanaians?
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me say that Ghanaians are generally very, very and highly religious. Our identity, our views, the expression of who we are heavily influenced by the kind of religious sect we belong to. Now, when you do a little bit of anthropology around the Ghanaian culture and the Ghanaian people, you understand that who we are is an expression of what we call our own group shared expectations. And these group shared expectations are what finds expression either in our norms, whether you are an Akan or an Ewe. And this same group shared expectation is also what finds expression in our religious practices, whether you are a traditional religious practitioner, you are a Christian, or you're a Muslim. And much of what we see as human rights challenges are things that are deep-rooted in our beliefs and our cultural norms. And over the years, what we've been doing is try to use law to limit some of those spaces so we can uphold what we call, what should be the ideal way we should behave, or the ideal way we should do things. So I think the Ghanaian identity is much shaped by our cultural norms, beliefs, and also our religion.
Thank you, Francis. Let me move on to Aliyah. Aliyah, what are your thoughts? Who is the Ghanaian?
Hello. Yeah. Before I go to the question, I actually wish to commend Amnesty International for this effort. We have been in this journey for over 2 decades, and at some point, it was like fatigue was setting in. We didn't get the kind of support or voices that we expected from the Ghanaian people, and even from civil society organizations, including NGOs. Action Aid and Song Taba were tagged as the only NGOs that were trying to promote the rights of people who are harmful to society. That goodwill was totally lost, and we were just fighting it all by ourselves. Thank God today we have Amnesty, we have other organizations coming on board. I actually returned from a trip yesterday to Tamale, but I said, as far as this conversation is concerned, I will have to make it to this meeting.
Great.
It gives me some hope that one day, we will put this at the back of us, and then it will be a thing of the past. Having said that, the Ghanaian identity is shaped by a number of things. Honorable mentioned it. by our beliefs, by our values, our social orientation, and our cultural heritage. Many Ghanaians believe so much in spirituality and religiosity. We believe that things that happen in our daily lives are controlled by spiritual forces, whether good or bad. But the sad news is when it is good, we give everything to God. If it doesn't go the way we expect, then we attribute that to the devil. And that is the other aspect of it. We also believe in communalism or social cohesion. We believe that we are interdependent of one another, and that fosters family and our community ties and the kind of social cohesion that exists in our communities. The Ghanaian also hold certain values so dear to their hearts, and that also shapes our identity. And one of it is our cultural heritage and our social orientation.
Good.
Yeah.
Right, so we've heard from the two people who've just spoken. They've defined from their perspective who we are. Who we are is shaped by factors that include our values, our beliefs, our social cohesion. So I will summarize it that the Ghanaian is inherently spiritual. Spiritual, which is used in very interesting ways. And one of those interesting ways is what we found through the visits that were undertaken by the panelists and Amnesty International's general body to the northern part of the country. So let's zone in on the study. So I'll start with Michelle. The report highlights a range of complex issues surrounding witchcraft accusations within Ghanaian society. And it's not limited just to the northern part of the country. Where I come from, things happen as well, and I'm a Fanti. So what factors contribute to the persistent belief in witchcraft and the societal responses to individuals accused of practicing witchcraft? Let me just add that, you remember Harry Potter? All of us remember the Harry Potter movies and the books. We saw the witches flying on brooms. Well, here they don't fly on brooms. We rather do things to them. So, Michelle, what factors contribute to this persistent belief and the reaction or the response to those who are accused of witchcraft?
Thank you. We can observe several factors that may contribute to this practice, one of which is the lack of economic resources combined with gender discrimination. So when, and with that you also can add the lack of formal education. So when something happens, something tragic happens, such as a death, illness, or even natural disasters, people need to find an explanation for it. And unfortunately, they would find this explanation by targeting people who are vulnerable in the community. So that's when the gender discrimination plays a role. So when something happened, it's usually women that are older or don't have children, are unmarried, or are successful or not otherwise fit into stereotypical gender roles, that would be scapegoats to blame and blamed for an event that they not otherwise can explain. So I think that's why it's important to tackle the root cause of witchcraft accusations and look at all those factors.
Great, so you've listed some factors. Let me move to Samadu. What other factors beyond the economic context, the misfortune that happens, and the need, the desire for us to find somebody to blame, what other factors have you identified?
Thank you so much. I think I share the same sentiment with Alia, whom I've worked closely over 7 decades. And for me, when I received the email for this program, I was very happy for that. Working around these camps, looking at oral history, that indicates that all old women are witches, orally. That's what we grew up to meet. So each time you come in contact with an elderly person, which are women, you think the person is a witch, supposedly. Then, from tradition, there has been intergenerational transfer. This had led to intergenerational transfer. Because I was just sharing this morning with Alia. Can you imagine asking a mother that she's a witch, then what becomes our wives in future, or our daughters in future? It means that when they also grow up, and they'll be tagged as witches. So I also look at gender and power dynamics. Gender and power dynamics had to do with the fact that when women wield this power, it means that they use it to harm people. But when men have it, it will surprise you to know that they become heroes in the community, because men use it to protect their family, but women use it on the other aspect of life. So these are some of the few things I will touch or add to what Michelle has said.
Thank you very much, Samadu. Belinda, any other factors that fuel this belief in our responses beyond what we've heard as age, wealth, education, the power that we have, and its relationship with our gender, whether male or female?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Before I answer your question, I want to appreciate my country director and then head of programs for giving me the opportunity to speak here and then join the panel. I'm sure most of you know me to be doing the rounds at the back and always moving around, but today I'm seated here. But I know that my team is doing so well at the back there, holding the fort for me. All right. Thank you very much for the question. We've mentioned a number of factors that contribute to women being tagged as witches, but there's something that baffles me based on the visit that I was fortunate to be part of the research. We visited the 3 witches camp, alleged witches camps. And what baffled me was that there were some of the camps where we had men in the camps, but they never said wizard camps. Please, have you ever heard a wizard camp before? Please, if anyone has heard about a wizard camp, you can raise your hand. You see, no one raised their hand. Why is it that it's always about the women that are always accused? So it means that there is something more to it than meet the eye. And apart from that, based on the interactions with some of the women, you realize that there's the system that the community lives in terms of marriage, the system of marriage that they have. Based on the discussions with some of the women, you realize that some of the stories that were told, that my rival dreamt and saw that I've killed her son, or I've killed my son, and then just out of that kind of system that they have, and then some jealousy as well, they go ahead and then tag their fellow women as witches. And it will surprise you to know that most of these allegations are actually made by women to women. Once you are a very hard-working woman living with your husband, with other shared wives, if you don't have children, they say you have chewed your children. If you don't have, if you are not very open-minded or very vocal, then they fish out that vulnerability that you have, and then they just start, tagging you as a witch. So some of these social systems that they already live in contributes to some of these.
Great. So I'm hearing you talk about the intersecting identities we find of the people who live there. But I want to stay on the issue of our Ghanaianness for a little bit longer and to ask Honorable here, are we justified? What we observed in the camps and what we've read from the books, juxtaposing that with who we are inherently, is there a justification for labeling and also the response?
Well, thank you very much. Straight to the point, there is no justification. There is no justification because society changes over time. I recall that there was a time in Ghana where trokoshi was allowed because it's part of our African traditional belief. And my mother was a victim of trokoshi. She was a virgin girl given to the shrine for the sins of her forefathers. And because of that, never went to school and never had any training. Fast forward, you can see how that has affected her and why some of us are still passionate about, limiting the space for these cultural practices, particularly those that are injurious to our being and those that actually undermine our humanness and our dignity as people. So there is absolutely no justification. In fact, when you go to the camps beyond the stories that were told here, you also realize that a lot of the things that were happening are born out of psychological challenges or people who are having some form of mental disorders, because some of the stories that we hear from the camps, they do not add up at all. And so it tells you that some of them, once women get to either menopause stages where they are talking a little bit more than normal, they are reacting a little bit more than what they should do. Men ordinarily will not be experiencing that kind of reaction. So once you start doing that, say, "Oh, mami, we are kasado, we are before, we see." So I think that we must accept the fact that our identity as a people has contributed to the problem, and agree that under the 1992 Constitution, any form of expression, cultural practice, belief, identity, any form of manifestation that undermines an individual, the dignity of an individual, those practices must be outlawed. And we must work assiduously to ensure that we outlaw those practices. That is the only way we can use law as a tool for social engineering. So we are not justified at all. We must come together and make sure that we change the practices that do not promote humanness.
Spoken as a true lawyer and human rights activist. But let me take it from there. The Constitution says part of our laws include customary law. Article 11. And then it goes on to talk about our fundamental rights, including the right to religion and to manifest our religion. It also talks about the importance of not allowing discrimination based on several protected characteristics, including our age, our gender, our ethnicity, etc. The Constitution also says that where there are customary practices that are injurious to the health and well-being of us, Ghanaians, and any other person living in Ghana, that is unacceptable. So I share the sentiments of Honorable that there is absolutely no justification for what we see in the northern part of the country. But to Michelle, looking at the broader human rights framework and what Amnesty International does, how do you connect the different identities, age, wealth, education, marital status, parentage? In fact, let me even add love. Because we read in their study that rivals, when they are jealous, can accuse. So even love. How do we situate these identities and the gender? Because the photos we are seeing are of females. So as people who are interested in human rights, how do we look at the issue not only from one angle, but try to connect the different identities to help us have a better appreciation of the context and the drive for us to advocate for change.
Thank you. I agree that we have to criminalize practices that are harmful. So although the beliefs are protected under international law, under freedom of religion, people are entitled to the belief under any context. But as soon as your belief infringe upon the human rights of certain people, of any person, it has to be criminalized, and the state has to step up to protect those individuals. To respond to your questions about vulnerability, it's important to look at layers of vulnerabilities. Here, you have a situation where there are several layers that make those women even more vulnerable. There is gender discrimination. They are targeted because they are women. When you add to that ageism, because they are older, maybe they cannot contribute to the community, that makes them even more vulnerable. When you add to that some women who have health issue, mental issue, that makes them even more vulnerable. So imagine someone in the community that has all those characteristics. That person is very vulnerable, and they need the protection, the legal protection, to ensure that they are not targeted when there are issues in the community.
Thank you, Michelle. Aliyah, can you add on the intersecting identities of the people who are accused?
Yeah, I think what I have to add to Michelle's submission is that I am happy with the way we have started looking at the issue. We need to do a very good situational analysis of the problem. Then that will help or guide us to map up very effective strategies of how to deal with it. One way solution may not work. It's very complex and complicated. We need the collaborative effort of all the people we have identified as key stakeholders in the report. One way is to look at the law to criminalize the practice.
Aliyah, you are ahead of me.
Yeah.
So let's
Okay.
back up a bit.
Right. But we need the collaborative effort of
Yeah.
everyone.
What other identities have you seen in the camps? Do you have persons with disability there, for instance?
Yes.
Does that contribute to their labeling as witches?
Yes, because they are part of the vulnerable groups.
Okay.
So we have them in the camps.
Samadu.
And then stereotypes. Stereotypes is actually one of the contributing factors to people being accused as witches. In our society, or where I'm coming from, when the man is alleged to be powerful, he is given praises and hailed. You hear them say, bonjour gombala, with some power in their voices, meaning it's a praise. He's so powerful. But when a woman is alleged to be possessing the same forces or powers, then she's considered as dangerous. So the inquisitiveness, I asked why. Then I was told that women are impatient. So because of our impatient nature, when we possess these powers, the likelihood of us using it negatively is high. So that is a stereotype.
Great.
So we need to address these issues holistically.
Samadu, do you want to add on?
Yeah. Thank you so much. In terms of vulnerability, I think there was a time I went to Patinga camp just to pay them a visit and see how they are faring. So I came across one woman who was blind, and I asked the camp priest, I said, why are you not picking this woman? Why not reintegrating her? And he goes like, oh, the children said when they come to pick her, they will kill her on the way, so they can't reintegrate her. So these are some, for instance, I think if you read the report very well, it highlighted on certain things like food, where they go to farms to work. So those individuals who are blind or disabled, how are they going to fend for themselves? So these are some of the things that we have to be looking at. And like Aliyah said, it's a very complex situation that we need to decouple and actually analyze it based on the faces that these things appear. Because I can imagine a woman whose son used to score a lot of goals. At the village park, when they play football, the guy always scored goals. The mother was tagged as a witch.
Okay. So success. All right. So what I'm hearing from my panelists is the need for us to look at the vulnerabilities and how complex it is and the connection with the gender of the person. So we find that from the study and from what our panelists have outlined, that when a person is poor, so wealth plays a factor, age plays a factor, disability. In fact, your marital status, whether you are single or married, whether you are divorced or widowed, whether you are even still in a relationship, your parentage, whether you have a child or not, is also a factor. Your health status, for those of us who are in our 50s who get hot by heart, if you're experiencing menopausal symptoms, that is also a factor. And even the agency, the ability of women to take decisions on their own within a patriarchal society. So Michelle said something very interesting. To be able to address the complexities we've outlined requires us to understand these vulnerabilities and to able to tackle the issues based on these different characteristics. So let's now move on to what the state and non-state actors have been doing to address the needs and the issues confronting those who are labeled as witches. The case of Equiadente, which was very popular in Ghana a few years ago, is a stark reminder of the gaps within the state's protection mechanisms. Within our human rights frameworks, the state has a responsibility to promote, protect, fulfill, and respect our rights. And it does these things by providing state agencies, including the police, health, our various ministries, to provide the needed assistance. So my first question related to this introduction goes to Belinda. What are some social interventions that are being implemented by the government of Ghana? What did you find when you visited the camps, and what did the research find? Belinda.
Thank you very much. So please permit me to just say something before your question. Based on the identities that we found out at the alleged camps, we didn't mention children, and children are actually, in fact, I was surprised to go to the camps and see more children. In fact, there are more children. I don't know if I'm making a right statement, but there seem to be more children in the camps than expected. Because you realize that when we interacted with the women, some of them said that even though they were tagged as witches and they ran away to the camps, some of them, their children knew that they had run to the camps, and then they brought their grandchildren to come and support them in the camps. So knowing that someone has been tagged as an alleged witch, you bring the children there. Now the children cannot even go back to their homes or to their parents, because once the child has been at the camp, the child in a way has been tagged as a witch, because the child cannot go back. And then one of the experiences that we had at the Kuko camp was that at the time we went there, most of the children were not even in schools, because the primary schools or the schools that have been set up in some of these camps, I mean, let's be honest, if you are a trained teacher posted to any of these places, we have students here, would you go? You see, because of the fact that the place has been tagged as a witches camp, even teachers, trained teachers who have been posted to these places do not even go there. They get there, they see the situation, and they run back to Accra or to a city or get a reposting. So the issue of children in the camps, in fact, is something that is very dear to my heart, and I really wish that, moderator, with all due respect, I don't want to go ahead of you in your questioning, but I really wish that something should be done for the children. Now, going to the social interventions, we were happy, at least, we were happy to know that, especially in Gambaga, which is a very structured camp, we realized that a number of the women, if not all, were registered on the National Health Insurance Scheme. And then some of them as well were registered on the Livelihood Empowerment Against Poverty Program, which is the LEAP. But it's still not enough, because we realize that even if you read some of the stories from our report, the women acknowledge that they had health insurance, which is a good social intervention by the government. However, some of the drugs cannot be catered for by the National Health Insurance. And we have other doctors and nurses coming to do some regular checks with them. You have jaundice, you have glaucoma, you have this and that. They need proper medical care, proper surgery, and they can't afford all of that. And I think the Presbyterian Church is actually managing the Gambaga camp. But how much money, how much effort is it that they can cater for each and every woman's illness at the camps? When I'm talking about the disability, I was just thinking in my mind, like this disability, like we went to the camps, Auntie Bernice. Some of the women are very, very old. They can't even stand straight. That is also a disability. But they carry wood that is as heavy as, you can imagine. And that is how they work for their daily livelihood or daily income. So in order for them to also have enough money to buy the other medicines that are not catered for in the health insurance, they have to do all these menial jobs. The LEAP as well. I'm so sorry. Let me just add this one. The LEAP as well. In fact, we were very surprised to know that even though they received the LEAP, is woefully inadequate. But imagine you are receiving 100 cedis as a family of 4. You, the grandmother, and then your 2 or 3 grandchildren. And then you are receiving 120 cedi. Whoever comes to the community to administer or the POS for you to get your payment also has his quota. So if you are receiving 120 cedi and the person's quota is 20 cedi, you are getting 100 cedis. Already 20 cedi is gone. It means you have to find the extra money or do extra work to ensure that your grandchildren are fed. So,
right. So,
now,
so
yes.
Belinda has mentioned that the state is doing something, including providing national health insurance coverage for the inmates, as well as putting them on the Livelihood Empowerment Against Poverty LEAP. There are also periodic health care or health checks for the inmates. Obviously, we want more. But let's hear from the non-state actors. So, Aliyah, what have you been doing? What is Action Aid doing to support the inmates?
Okay. So before I touch on Action Aid's work, I am the type who wants to give credit when it is due or where it is due. The LEAP didn't just come on a silver platter. I want to really give credit to the then Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection, Nana Oye Lita, now Nana Oye. She was phenomenal in this struggle. Action Aid sponsored the Reintegration Committee to come and meet Oye Lita, the then minister in Accra, to discuss about the deplorable conditions in the camps. And as part of the discussion, she promised us that she was going to enroll all the women across the camps on the LEAP program. And she just did as she promised. We got back, we were given 3 days to submit names of all the women across the 6. That time we had 6 camps, and we did, and she honored her promise. They were all on it. Until anyway, it's not unfortunate. We are in a democratic space, so government will go, government will come. When there was change, shortly, more than half of the women, their names got out of the system. And so we were following up and we're told that there was a cut in the IMF support that was coming into the country, and those women were not qualified or categorized as vulnerable groups.
Yeah.
I don't know whichever person will be categorized as vulnerable as the women, unless somebody who has not visited the camps to see what the women are going through. So she did well on that. Again, on the national health insurance, she came to Tamale. In fact, she's one of them who has visited some of the camps with us. She called and spoke to all the MMDCs where all these camps were located, pleaded with them to register these women under the National Health Insurance Scheme and then renew it for them whenever they expire. And they did that. So I want to give thumbs up to her.
Great.
We collaborated so well with her.
Thank you very
during
much.
her regime. And to Action Aid, I don't know what to even say. Anyway, Action Aid, the reintegration committee that I'm talking about with Songtaba is our core partner, so we just work hand in hand, was actually born out of a regional conference ever that we organized on this issue and about this conversation in 2010. It was so serious. I'm even looking at that. There's progress. The frequency of the accusations, the dehumanizing manner in which women were being ridiculed and subjected to has come down. Was too much. So we had to call for that regional level conversation. We brought everybody on board to look at it because it was just tearing families and communities apart. Now, there was a roadmap that was developed from 2010 to 2015, a 5-year roadmap. And in that roadmap, we had issues about empowering communities, educating them on our national laws that frowned upon some of these practices. That was in the roadmap that we targeted the closure of the first camp, the Bonyashe camp, where we had to reintegrate all the women back to their communities and close down that camp with the support again with that, of that minister that I just mentioned. Food support, we used to support them to farm. But at some point, as they were getting older, they couldn't farm again because they didn't have the energy. So we started giving food. We provided them. The Ngani camp today, the water source that they have there was provided by Action Aid in support with the Australian Embassy. You know, we've built schools, like my sister said. But some of the schools couldn't survive because of the perception around the environment and everything around the phenomenon. So the teachers were posted there, they won't go and all of that. I can't count what we have done. I cannot exhaust them here. But that is what we have.
Thank you. Samadu, if you can add.
Thank you so much. Let me add up to what Belinda just mentioned. Looking at the grandchildren, I think it's a cycle that we ought to break. Because if you go, for instance, to Kuku camp, you see an old lady who came as young as 10 years to Kuku, to their grandmother. Now the grandmother passes on, and she remains there because she can't go home. It's assumed that the powers have been transferred to her. I'll urge all of you to go have a look at some of these things. So it means that that kind of poverty cycle remains static. Girls are not going, usually it's girls. It's not even boys. So the cycle of girls not education is also part of these problems that we mentioned. So just to add up to what civil society has been doing, we, Songtaba, as an organization in partnership with Action Aid, I think we have also done some roofing. Because if you go to the Kuku camp, they live in thatch houses, mud and thatch houses. I know mud and thatch houses, within some few years, it will be leaking. So in the rainy season, some of the women could stand as long as it rains. So we came in to support them with the roofing. But unfortunately, it also comes as a cost because these are donor funding that at least at a point in time there's donor fatigue that we don't get some of these things. Finally, in terms of the food, I think sustainability was also key here. So we have to liaise with the MMDAs so that they can factor some of these challenges in their medium-short development plans so that they can be giving them food. And one of the districts, honestly, Nanumba South District have been doing very well when it comes to that.
Thank you very much.
So much.
So they've added more to what the state is doing at the national and also decentralized levels, and what faith-based organizations like the Presby Church is doing. And now we've heard about Action Aid and Songtaba and other organizations. Now I want to move to Michelle, then I'll come to Honorable Sosu. Why is the state unable to provide the necessary support? We've heard from our colleagues, NHIS renewals a challenge. Education, we start the schools, teachers don't want to go. They don't have water. Their health needs are not adequately cared for. Why is the state struggling? Are we a forgotten group?
I think even though the government has made efforts to change the situation, it is not coordinated. It's here and there, it's short term, so there's a need to have more coordination and over a sustained amount of time, long term, because things are not going to change overnight. People will take time for them to change the practices. So there's a need for a long-term coordination at the national level campaign to sensitize people in those communities. That will require budgets, that will require resources, human resources, as well as financial resources. And it should be made a national priority, because it doesn't affect only the hundreds of women we've seen. It affects children, it affects their grandchildren. So I think for it to change, there needs to be all the organs of the states that should sit down together, and everyone that should be involved. The Ministry of Gender, the Ministry of Health, the police, all the organs, the chieftaincy, the local chiefs. Everyone needs to come together to come up with a plan, and it should be done in a sustained amount of time.
Thank you very much, Michelle, mentioning sustainability and the need for resources. It means Parliament must pass the Appropriation Act, within which the Ministry of Gender says we need so much money, and the money is provided on time and doesn't get blocked along the pipeline. So, Honorable, why are the state apparatus not getting sufficient resources? When you read the report, the police is complaining, health is complaining, Ministry of Gender is complaining. So what can we do to, at least in the short term, look at providing sustainable support to our poor women?
Thank you once more. Just before I say what we should do, let me add my voice to earlier voices actually commending the Amnesty International bringing this to the fore. And I'm saying this because in the last 3-4 years, whilst working on criminalizing accusation of witchcraft, we never had this type of engagement. And so, though you have a law that a president says, I'm not going to sign, there were many people who were still not really aware of the issues. What are the real issues? How does a simple accusation affect one woman, affects her grandchildren who live out in a cycle of being accused as witches because they are living with their grandparents in witch camps? And so I would say that as part of the contribution of the CSOs, which of course Amnesty International is one of the biggest CSOs we have in Ghana, it's also about bringing the issues to the fore and setting the agenda to make the issue a national conversation that everybody should be interested in. The National House of Chiefs should be interested in. The Regional House of Chiefs should be interested in. Almost all MMDAs should be interested in a conversation like this. And we are hoping that out of this conversation, the Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection can actually begin a national platform where this conversation can be elevated beyond what we do in simple meetings like this. Now, let me say that the reasons why we have budgetary cut or limited funding for courses like this is the kind of importance we attach to courses like this. That's how simple it is. We will always have inadequate, the theory of economics will teach us that the law of scarcity will always live with us. There is no way in any annual budget government will be able to provide for every course or every sector. But if we see this as very, very important and that we need to, as a medium-term approach, make adequate provision for the sustenance of these women as we take the medium to long-term plans of criminalizing or changing our policies, then I'm sure that we'll be willing to commit a little bit more to them. But as we speak now, I think that as a nation and as a state, we have not really appreciated the enormity of the harm being done to women, especially vulnerable elderly women. As you know, as a people, we often have this fast service approach to situations. When Equiadenta came, all persons in the space, gender activists were all over the place. We were screaming off the roof. Once it was over, everybody went to sleep. When we began the process, since the passage of this bill, from the time we passed the bill in 2023 till the time there was a change in government, 6 other women were accused and were killed. Even one happened in church where a pastor accused a woman of being a witch. They went home and then the daughter in Kumasi went and burnt her house and then killed the mother. And so it's about what kind of urgency we want to give to the causes. In my view, I just like the way Belinda was speaking. When we went on a tour, our time we did like 5 of the witch camps. Yes, I think Action Aid was involved. When we finished, anytime we go, when we come back in the night, we do what we call the briefing, and we do debriefing. For each of the nights, from the police service led by the DOFSU, the Action Aid, members of parliament who were there, every night everybody said, we wish this law could be passed tomorrow. We wish this law could be passed tomorrow. So it's as though we, those who are practitioners, who are deeply involved, we know something that many people do not know. And so they don't appreciate the situation. When you are talking to them, they don't even appreciate the urgency, the need for us to make this happen now. So that to me, instead of even having a conversation around how can we make budgetary allocation for people, I'm looking at how can we get the gender minister to go to parliament and say that let's take this law on as an urgent bill so that in the next 3 months we have a law that criminalizes the accusation of witchcraft. After you have a law that criminalizes the accusation of witchcraft, now we plan our sensitization programs that goes back into the community to say that you can't accuse somebody of being a witch anymore. And then we can now think about how we make provisions for the reintegration and helping these women out. It feels so scandalous to me sitting here looking at those women I saw 3 years ago, believing that they are still there, and we are not thinking about how do we make some money available so that they can continue living in that camp for the next 6 months, for the next 1 year. And I don't know how to even go about that conversation right now.
Honorable, your comments can paint a picture of what goes on in the camp, even if we haven't been there physically. But back to the law, since you have championed this bill, what can we do? I mean, the question I've always asked myself is, how can the bill or that has been passed by Parliament not be assented to? I mean, it just beats my imagination how we could allow this to happen. We've criminalized trochocy, female genital mutilation, cruel widowhood right. We've passed the law against domestic violence. This affects our vulnerable, aged women. How could we allow the bill to go unassented to? And now we must start the process again. How do you feel about this?
Honestly, it feels very, very disappointing. And I think someone said something earlier on. Sometimes you feel you just want to give it up. You see, the reason is that this is not like a personal cause. You know, I have no, like, I don't have like a mother accused of being a witch, even though she can be accused because she's 73 now. But the whole thing is that we must appreciate as a people that we are building a society, and if you are building a society, we must aspire to ideals that protect all of us, a communal protection of all of us. And so to go through the process, go through the meals, in fact, those who follow the process very closely, it was a very meticulous process for the law to be passed. Fast forward, we didn't have an assent. Very disappointing. There's a change in government. I believe that all the stakeholders can come back to the Speaker of Parliament, go to the Committee on Human Rights in Parliament, go to the Her Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic, who is also a woman, and an elderly woman for that matter, go back to the President of the day, go to the Gender Minister, and we form a very strong coalition that will demand an urgent attention on this matter. For the fact that the bill was passed before, it means that government can assume this position and take this as an urgent bill, and we can have a law in the next 6 months. So we can, the narrative around these matters can change from being still trying to get a law to now talking about how do we implement these laws and implement these regulations for the protection of women.
We want to look at the way forward, what we must do to address this situation, bear in mind the complexities around it. So let's start from you. You are passionate about children, so perhaps you take the issue of children.
Yes, in fact, I'm very passionate about kids, and I mean, on the side, I'm a Sunday school teacher, so I'm very proud about that as well. I want to thank Madam Faustina for how passionate she's spoken, and all the other people that spoke on this matter. And also to Ministry of Gender, thank you for increasing the leap for the women. I hope that the issue where I mentioned that those who administer the money to them, we should please ensure that they don't take too much of the money from the women in terms of their cuts. They are not supposed to. So please, let's arrest them and put them behind bars. Yes, on the issue of the way forward with the children, I think that it will still go back to the education on the behavioral, people's behavioral mindset. We should continue education, like very deep-rooted education on the root causes that we've all mentioned here, so that we do not tag children as witches or wizards and be thinking that their grandparents transfer the witchcrafts to their grandchildren. It also helps the students or the children have a very free and energetic space in their communities to mingle with other people whose parents have not yet, when I say yet, because we do not know what's going to happen next, but then people whose children are still having the education that they deserve. Every child deserves education, and this education on the behavioral mindset of people should cut across the whole community, so that no child is being tagged as a witch or a wizard.
Thank you, Belinda. Aliyah.
All right. So I am also recommending that we need to work strongly with our religious leaders. In fact, I would say they even contribute to many of the accusations and the branding of women and children as witches. The soothsayers in our communities who claim they have so much power that they can identify witches and wizards. We need to bring them on board. Our traditional leaders, some of them have been very helpful in this journey. They are so much revered in the communities that no one can accuse anybody of witchcraft, not alone to abuse the person. I can mention a few. We have the Sanarugu now, who is so much powerful, and he has been able to help us. There are a number of them. So there are also people that we need to work so much closely with to help us in this struggle. One thing I always say is, accusing somebody of witchcraft is not far from anybody's door. stairs. You know, when we started, one time I walked to one of the organizations. It's an NGO, a big one for that matter. I went there looking for another gentleman. Then one of the managers called me, come, come, come. Then I came. Sit down. Then I sat. She said, Aliyah, Action Aid has been talking about this, making all the noise, and we just felt that it is not important. Last week, my auntie was accused that we were so much uncomfortable. What she was subjected to, I think it's about time we all join our voices. He said that. The Reintegration Committee Chair, Dr. Al-Hussein, is a lecturer at UDS, now retired, said in one of his lectures, a student, I think the conversation came up, and the students were arguing so strongly among themselves, and one of his students mentioned that for him, if any woman is reintegrated to his community, in fact, he would lead the lynching or the killing of that woman. He mentioned it. And that, lo and behold, a week later, he was in his office when there was a knock at the door. He asked the person to come in. The guy came in with his eyes red. He was so, like, in pain. So he thought the guy was asking for forgiveness. So he said, no, it was a conversation. I didn't have anything against you. He said, my mother was accused 3 days ago, you know, and banished. So it's not far from any of us. So we need to actually be interested in anything that is not good is not good. You may never know whose door it will come knocking at.
Thank you. Samadu, thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much. I think I just want to add to what my sister said on their mental health. I think Songtaba has done a research on these camps. I think it's cited in that report, so it's very commendable. But, you know, those communities are far away from the police stations. I don't know, maybe Belinda can concur on that. So what happened is that we have trained some youth. We call them youth campaigners against alleged witches. So they are in these communities as spies or whatever it takes. So that with the least hint, they can connect with the Ghana Police Service to come and rescue the woman. So these are some of the things that we also do, because we cannot always be in the community. Like we tell them, we cannot always be in the community. And we can't save you. For instance, if I remember Bonyanshi, before they closed Bonyanshi, you go there, you don't see gonjas.
Gonjas?
Yes. Strangely. Meanwhile, that camp is located at Central Gonja, around Bupe. But there were other tribes that were coming. So we asked, and they go like, okay, you know, when somebody is accused, they send a person to the camp for purification. Purification means that they are going to take the powers away from you, so they give you some concoction to take, blah, blah, blah. When you are okay, then they send you home. You understand that? So for them, they don't keep them at the camp, but the camp was located at the heart of Gonjas.
Okay.
So for me, way forward, I think the youth campaigners are very critical, because these communities are far away from the law enforcement agencies. And like we mentioned, some of the police, I don't know, I think they need to be trained.
The police?
The police. The police, the Shura, the DOBS, like all those institutions, they need some kind of education. So don't let us only limit it to the community level. A lot of people are here that are not even aware of what is going on. So it's very critical. And lastly, I think, Honorable, I think you've done a yeoman's job. Let's see how your colleagues can support you. Let's advocate. And to the media, at least you can use your space. It's very important to highlight some of these things. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Thank you.
Thank you. We've heard it's a really complicated issue, but we believe it can be changed by making it a national issue, a national concern. We talked about the hundreds of women who are accused, but it's not just them. There are men that are accused. There are children that are impacted, grandchildren. It impacts all sorts of rights. It's a violation of the right to education, the right to health, the right to safe housing, the right to help, the right to even life and security. So it should be seen as a societal issue, not just their issue. And it is a daunting task, but it is possible. Songtaba and Action Aids have been working for decades trying to address this issue by helping women in the camps and reintegrating them, but it shouldn't be their burden alone. We should all help to try to change the situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Honorable.
Yeah, thank you very much. I would say that the way forward is legislation, legislation, legislation. Indeed, laws would not solve all the problems at a go, but at least they provide the platform, or they provide at least the benchmark with which we can work. When you look at the proposal that came to Parliament, or that we took to Parliament, one, we're supposed to criminalize the naming and the labeling of people as witches. In which case, once you can label someone as a witch, you can't name the person as a witch, you can't accuse somebody as a witch. What it means is that whether the naming or the labeling is happening in a witch camp, or it's happening in a church meeting, it's happening in a church prayer camp, or wherever it is happening, it is prohibited. Not only that, there is a prohibition of determining who a witch is, because in practice, where someone is named as being a witch, the Tindanes or the traditional priests, they have a way of identifying whether you are a witch or you are not a witch. But the process by identifying whether you are a witch or not a witch sometimes can only be by a fowl thrown on the floor, and when the fowl turns this way, then you are a witch, or if it turns the other way, then you are not a witch. There is no objective standard in determining who actually is quote and unquote a witch or not a witch. So that whole practice of being a witch doctor and having an enterprise and making money of people that you're a witch doctor, you have the capacity to determine who a witch is and who a witch is not. It's also prohibited under the law. Now, the third thing is that when people are accused of being witches, they usually will be matched to a particular destination. There is always a host person, whether a palace or, in the case of other religious sects, maybe a church or a camp or something, where this performance takes place. In fact, there's a prohibition of using your space for purposes of determining who a witch is. And beyond that one, there is also a penal compensation against a person who accuses a person of being a witch. And community leaders who supervise these things who have criminal consequences. And community leaders have been defined to mean not only chiefs and sub-chiefs, also pastors and other religious leaders. So, and then finally, there is a comprehensive provision for integration of people in witch camps and disbanding the whole practice of keeping people in places called witch camps. So, I believe that whilst this law may not be a panacea to the complex social situation that we have seen, it will set a stage, at least a premises by which we can all start the conversation. When we did the fiscal impact analysis of the law way back 3 years ago, it meant that this practice that has been with us for over 100 years, in the last 30 years, government through LEAP or NHIS has spent close to over 50 million Ghana cedis in maintaining that structure known as witch camps. And that is without, we are not even talking about the indirect investment by CSOs and people who go there just to be able to support the women. So, in fact, when we look at the fiscal impact, the amount of money we are wasting, even as a people, on the practice, coupled with the danger that we subject women to, it is so important and so crucial that we do away with this law. And for me, it is now or never. Thank you very much.
Great words. It's now or never. Thank you very much to my panelists. What I am taking away is that the bottom line is it's about women. Everything about women either sells, makes a lot of money, or it can be quite devastating because of the discrimination underlying them. Look at all the customary practices that have been criminalized. FGM, women, trocosi, widowhood rights, domestic violence, predominantly women. So when it's the same thing, it sells as well. Whether we are selling wigs or makeup or eyelashes, it's all, or we are now body sculpturing. Women make money. So, but we cannot look at the economies alone and continue with such acts that discriminate against one half of our population. So thank you to our panelists for the ideas and also to our audience for the strategies that you have outlined. Thank you. Please help me to thank them with a clap. Yeah. All right. Oh, we want a group picture. Should we then wrap up the meeting before we take the group photos? So please, Honorable, if you can hold on for a few minutes. Please, can we find a seat for him? So we'll want to call on my dear lady, Madam Charity Bature, who is the board vice chairperson for Amnesty International Ghana, to give us the closing remarks.
Happy to see you again. Thank you very much. Before I concretely end with the closing remarks, I want to say a few things to buttress what we've heard here. Actually, some of them, when you've not experienced it, it looks like the normal stories we hear. When Honorable said, depending on how the file turns this way, that way, that is the truth. I had been to one of such consultations, and then the file is thrown, we are all watching. The next moment, oh, everything is good. The ancestors have accepted the way it's lying down. So I was like, oh my God. So what happens if it was the other way? Did they look at the possibility that at the last breath of that file, it could have gone to the other side? But that is how somebody's fate is determined, unfortunately, and sad enough. And then also, I agree that we are going to do what we can, but I want us to live with this perception that I have. In fact, it was a deep thought that I gave it. I decided to put it in a triangle form. We have the spirituality as Ghanaians, the personal perception that we make, and then the systems that should work to help us achieve the goal. And most often, when you have the spirituality on top, what it's telling us is that it's affecting, or should I say, it's influencing our personal belief, then that will also lead to how our systems will work. So, like, I heard somebody say that, how would the police go and arrest somebody accused of witchcraft? And then I was just telling Boche that you won't believe that yes, madam. I think now I know better and I'm doing A, B, C, D. So you see, until it's at our doorstep, we'll still see it at normal stories. For those of us who've had the opportunity of seeing them and feeling and living, when we sit and listen to this, it's like how I wish it would be like a real life play that will all be actors in it. Then we'll go home with different perception about the issues. So having said that, I'm now coming back to my closing remarks, and I'll give the stance of AI Ghana. We've had a meeting with the Attorney General. That was about a month ago. And he's encouraging us
to go on with the private bill. Honorable, so we are back to your doorsteps. We are looking at how we can work together, but this is what he is advising. We should still proceed with the private bill on it. So we'll see how we can work together, and then see how we resolve the, you made a position of you want it to be treated with some form of urgency, and this is what AG is also saying. But I think together in the room, we know we'll definitely get back to you so that we'll find how we can work at it. But whilst we are working on the systems working, please let's bear in mind the angle, the triangle, the spirituality, the personnel, and then the systems. The laws and everything falls under the systems. What are we doing about spirituality? The churches, the imams, the traditional leaders, the traditional beliefs, everything. Then we ourselves in this room. I was happy that Madame Bernice mentioned that every home, we believe that a woman is what? Is a witch. And if you are frank and sincere with yourself, if you get back to your village, you comfortably greet one old man than greeting an old woman, because your perception after the old lady, once I shake her hand, I will not get back to Accra. So let's leave this room changing our own mindset first. Then we can together bring to bear what we expect of the systems to support us. So on that note, I want to say thank you. We've enjoyed your contributions, and we love the passion that is coming from the room. We look forward to working together to achieving the desired goal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of the Ministry of Gender. I see my sister Sabia and her team here. Also acknowledging Dr. Foley. Doc, welcome from the Ghana Legal Aid Commission, and all other persons here. So I want to take a few group photos, and then we can call it a day. So Honorable Madam Board Vice Chair, you can take the first group. So Belinda, if you can coordinate this. Oh, and Professor Techua Menu, Emerita Professor Techua Menu. Prof, you are most welcome. She's in my chat, so I just asked, Prof, you are most welcome. Thank you very much. One minute, let's stand here. So, Madam Prof. Our panelists, please, if we can have all our panelists here with Dr. Idrisu, Madam Owusua, please. Auntie Techua. We'll take a group photo. Oh, okay. Ministry of Gender. Then we have someone, is it from British High Commission? Yes, please. Please stay for one more shot with the Amnesty International Regional Office and our sister there. Please join them. Do we have Michelle here already? Okay. Very well. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. So we've come to the end of the forum, and we thank everyone who was here or is here and your thoughts. And once the campaign gets on, we'll all join Amnesty International and the various groups to make the law a reality and to provide our support to our women in these camps. Thank you very, very much.